Hey y'all, welcome back to part 2 of picking up hind feet with my newest Mustang, Hesperie. So we're starting back up, still on day 5, as I had to split this video into 2 parts, and then we'll move on to day 6. I didn't end up reaching my goal of picking up both back feet with my hand on day 5, so this training carried over into day 6. She was pretty sensitive about her back legs, as you saw in the previous video, and again, I think a lot of this had to do with the mud that was on her back legs. The video really doesn't do it justice. There was so much mud clumping on her fur that was probably causing quite a bit of discomfort, and so my goal was to be able to give her a bath, which I ended up being able to do, spoiler alert, just a few days later. And so she did kick the rope off, which was unfortunate, but I was able to get it back on her. Just going to take out all of my failed attempts. It's all desensitizing. The more you miss, the more desensitized I get. So I had started using some pressure on the rope to ask her to pick up this leg, following the same process that I did with the left hind. And as I thought, she was a little bit more sensitive with this leg, and she was more prone to kicking with it. So I just took my time going at her pace because she was pretty unsure about it. Once again, just waiting to feel like she relaxes and softens, which is something that I feel in the rope, and it's kind of hard to spot or point out what it looks like, but when I feel like she softens her leg and relaxes into the rope, I let her foot down. And then starting to alternate touching down her leg with my hand with picking it up with the rope so that she can get prepared for both, and eventually both at the same time. I don't mind if she moves around too much. I'm just waiting until she can softly pick her leg up. She got a bit upset there because she lost her balance. She was trying to pick up the other leg to shift sideways while I was holding the rope, so I possibly could have released her leg if I'd been a little bit quicker, and she might not have lost her balance. These are still very mild kicks. She's mostly just communicating. Maybe she's unsure, she's a bit uncomfortable with the feeling of the rope, and she's possibly trying to figure out if she can get the rope off her by kicking. It's a very natural reaction for them, and this is still pretty mild compared to a lot of the Mustangs that I've worked with. She's not spooking and running around or anything, and I've prepared her as best as I can. She's mainly expressing herself and trying to see what will work. At this point, because she's just getting more and more upset, what I possibly could have done was take a step back and go back to using the stick on her leg to help her bridge the gap and get her more prepared for that feeling of my hand going on her leg while I'm holding it up. But hindsight is 20/20, and we had to work through this reaction. She's not doing anything bad or trying to be aggressive or anything. She's just expressing that this is something that's hard for a horse to learn, and she's doing pretty well considering.
Like, this is what I'm used to. Not the ones that are like, yeah, what? Oh, like the Twin Peaks. This is normal Mustang behavior. Yeah, that's not even that bad either. No, this is nothing.
Let's just say I've had some of the Mustangs that make me very grateful for the SBs of the world, and especially the Kirbys and Odysseys and all of the horses I've had that didn't even think about kicking.
Kind of weird for
So if I'd taken it back a few steps sooner, maybe I could have prevented all of this. But it was too late, so I had to wait her out until she realized that it was okay and she didn't have to kick to get out of the situation. Again, I'm just trying to do what I think is in her best interest, which is to get her to the other side of this so that I can help her out even sooner. I don't want to be waiting for weeks and weeks to be able to trim her hooves and waiting until they're way too overgrown, because at this point they're already very, very long. It's kind of hard to tell in the sand pin that she's in, but I'll be sharing some close-up pictures of her hooves in future videos and y'all can see just how bad it was. I gave her some breaks and petted her face. She really liked having her eyes scratched because the flies were bothering her. Poor girl. I started putting a fly mask on her, I think a couple days after this. That felt like a really good spot to end for that day. And the next day, I picked up with a little bit of work on leading. I did some sending back and forth, desensitizing with flinging ropes all around her. And then I wanted to try this following the feel exercise where you flip the rope behind them and have them spin a circle away from you following the feel of the lead rope. This helps teach them not to just follow where you are, but to actually come off the pressure on the halter. And she did it really well. She's pretty smart, but it also helps get them used to ropes and things behind their back end. So I made it pretty easy for her. And because of the feeling of the rope on her left side, she started to already move around. So by the time I applied the pressure on her face, she was like, okay, I got this. This direction, she found it a little bit harder because of the positioning she was in when I first applied that pressure. This exercise can confuse them a bit at first, so I was just waiting and letting her figure it out. I released the pressure until I could get her into a spot where I felt like she would understand a bit better. It's typically a bit easier for them to ask in the corner. Now, if she gets scared and she trots forward, I just wait her out until she starts to figure it out. Here I applied a bit more pressure, and you can see how it confuses them a little bit, and then they start to figure it out. This is, I think, a very important exercise for them to learn, as it's something that leads into ground driving, where they have to have a rope behind them and pressure on the opposite side of where I'm standing. Then I tried to flip it around her while she was trotting, because that's sort of the next step. After I've explained it to her at a walk or a standstill, I start to do it in motion. And again, I ask her in the corner. That helps her want to stop and turn around. She was confused for a second, and then she figured it out. Just giving her a refresher on the front feet. She was a little bit unsure, so what I did was move my hand down her leg before she could pick up her leg and react. If I can move quickly without moving fast enough to scare her, I can get her understanding that she can stand still with my hand going down her leg. I don't want her to think every time something touches her she has to pick her leg up. I need to be able to touch the lower half of her leg without her always picking it up. This was the longest I'd held her leg up for, so she did really well with that. Same process on the left leg, which is her more confident side, so she was a little bit better with that leg. Then I put the rope back on her left hind and went to refreshing her. She did very well. She was definitely still a bit uncomfortable. And then I took the rope off to give her a break, and I got frustrated with being unable to swing it back onto her leg. So I decided to just go for it and pick up her leg. I didn't think she would do anything, and if she did, her kicks were slow enough that I was pretty sure I could get out of the way. Always a bit nerve-wracking the first time, but she's a really good girl, and I can tell she doesn't want to hurt me at all. She's just expressing herself. That was very good. So after giving her a pat on the head, I did that one more time, just trying to see if I could hold it up a little bit without her thinking about kicking. Now she's thinking about it here, but she's being very good. She's pretty soft and light in my hand, and so I just waited her out. I didn't really feel unsafe doing this because I felt like she had been prepared enough at this point that we could work through this. And I thought that was a good spot to quit on that leg. I corrected the mistake I made the previous day, which was moving a bit too fast and not moving backward quickly enough when she was telling me she wasn't ready. Horses are so forgiving though, and always willing to let us take a step back and do things the right way. I like filming my training, not just so I can share it with you guys, but also so that I can watch back and see what I can improve on. And when she was giving me signs that she wasn't ready yet, I could have taken it back a step further, a little bit sooner, but she was a very good girl for allowing me to use the flag on her leg, and I wanted to see if I could use the flag while holding it up with the rope, and she was really good. So I think this was a good preparation step for her, and this helped make her training on this day a whole lot smoother. I find that Mustangs learn a lot in between sessions, and they learn a whole lot from where you left off the previous day. And so I find that if I can show them, hey, I can put my hands on your leg, I can lift up your leg with my hand, and it's not going to hurt you at all, I'm not trying to do anything to your leg but hold it up, then they start to go, oh, okay, and trust you a whole lot more. And so the next day, they're already miles better than they were previously. I'm really excited to share when I started trimming her, because she was so good for it all. Well, thank y'all so much for watching part 2 of picking up Hesperie's hind hooves, and stay tuned for the next video.